I was really surprised. She's just warm, bubbly, and eager to take on challenges. She seems to me to be the perfect jungle contestant.
Hello, welcome back to Jungle Confidential, the Mail's podcast and your place to hear all things I'm a Celebrity. Today, I'm so happy to be joined by Arlene Phillips, a contestant from last year's show. Morning, Arlene. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine this fairly dull morning.
Yeah, it's quite dull, isn't it? Now, last night, we saw a surprise eviction. I was surprised. Obviously, lovely Scarlett Douglas, who I've really enjoyed watching. Were you surprised at that one?
I was really surprised. She's just warm, bubbly, and eager to take on challenges. She seems to me to be the perfect jungle contestant. I love her personality and her just a very, very sort of natural. I never felt like she was putting anything on for cameras or switching off. She was just her. Yeah. And it was really sad to see her crying. You know, when I was out, I was ready to go and nobody else wanted to go. And in fact, I was smiling only because I'd given everyone a chance to be in there longer because they would become my friends. But for her, when someone really doesn't want to go and then you go away questioning yourself why, I had no questions. But for her, yes, there are questions.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think those questions are? I mean, what do you think was behind it? I
think why a female, quite frankly, because I think on our show, I think I was first, and then I think it was Kadeena, and then Snoochie. You know, Frankie did remain in right until the bitter end, but it did seem to be exclusion of females as quickly as possible.
Yes, I mean, that's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, of course, Charlene went on Friday. I mean, you know, you can't escape the fact that two black women went first.
No, absolutely. And Charlene, I really got her. You know, she was strong, you know, and brave. And yeah, it just seems it's hard to find a way. What do females have to do to be recognized? Their strength doesn't seem to appeal as much as it does for the male's strength.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And obviously, look, you know, the public are voting. And ultimately, you know, it's a public's choice, isn't it, who they vote for? But it's worrying, isn't it, that it is always women that go first. I mean, we've also, you know, we've seen it on Strictly as well, haven't we? You know, you kind of wonder what's going on here. It's a shame in 2022, isn't it, that I'm a Celeb is in this place.
You know, it's very interesting, the where women really, really stand in society. You know, you only have to watch Parliament on TV and you just look. And as much as parties are trying to bring in females, and you look in, again, House of Lords, we're dominated by males. We are swamped by them, which is why I think it's so important for women of every age to be on television. Again, very much for older women. I mean, I've just started doing my own little Instagrams on aging, what it's like to be aging, you know, to be aging as a woman and all the things that you find. We need to be a stronger dominant force and be able to hold those strong positions. And, you know, sometimes I think, well, maybe it's female viewers, because sometimes female viewers are not the ones who necessarily support women.
No, that's a real shame. And look, I know the racism issue is a very difficult one, particularly for you and I as white women.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just wonder how perhaps Charlotte and Scarlette do feel on that matter.
I think both of them will feel pretty down that they went so early. But then there were not a lot of women in the camp. And I could say the same thing about the year that I was in. There were many more men than women, as indeed there are this year. You know, if we were to switch that balance, I think there was a 12 in the camp, isn't it? If we were to switch the balance to at least 7 or 8 to 5 or whatever, in terms of both, would it have been different?
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And also you've got, you know, Charlene and Scarlette. I warmed to Scarlette. I thought she was wonderful. But then you've got Seann Walsh in there, who, I mean, there's been accusations of from his former girlfriend that he coercively controlled her. You've got Boy George, who's got a history, you know, and yet these two men are still there. You know, that in itself is slightly concerning, isn't it?
Well, it's, you know, history. I mean, there are, I guess, so many people who had history, and they, you know, they do have people there with history. They are, in some sense, for me, private histories that have become public due to their exposure. You know, and I always say, we don't know what's happening in any household, anywhere, all over the UK. We don't know what happens behind closed doors. It's all out in the open. This one says this, that one says that. But, you know, there is somebody there with a very, very public history, you know, which I find more disconcerting, if I could, use that word, because that is public history. Whereas with Boy George, exactly what happened, I don't think any of us know. And again, with Seann, who, you know, I always feel, unless people actually sit and talk together about or expose exactly what happened in that moment, which they don't.
We weren't there.
We are all reading their history as we read it in the press or as we heard it on television. You know.
I presume you're talking about Matt Hancock there.
I am, yeah.
Do you think that it was wrong that he was signed up to go on there?
I think in many ways it makes me extremely uncomfortable. It really does.
In what way? What's your reasoning for that?
Because I think when somebody becomes a politician, they have a status. They have a status to uphold, in that they are there set to lead, set to guide, set to create, let's say, a calm, an evenness, an understanding, a recognizable position. And I'm not sure that can be fully represented by, you know, allowing the snakes to walk over you. Listen, I had enough, not backlash actually, because I did get a lot of kindness. But when I went into it and I had already been made a dame, it was like, you know, what is a dame doing in the jungle? Is that what one does? What when you're recognized as someone who has had a strong history in charity, building up your presence and being a figure for ability to speak about that charity, and also recognized in the world of dance there's a level you reach and you're suddenly thinking, yeah, you're going in there, you know, shivering, freezing, showing your vulnerability and lying around with snakes in a very small box. Why is that? Yes, because I feel like we all have our own reasons and inner demons that you think, well, here's a quick way of losing those fears. And you're trying something different. But as a politician, I think you have to uphold your presence, and particularly a politician who I think has failed the public greatly, then just be there for your constituents, be there as a human being you are. Don't try and be lovable or ask for forgiveness on television.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it all feels a little bit uncomfortable at times, doesn't it? I mean, as you say, you know, people have got their views on the COVID thing, but the one fact remains that he's got a constituency in West Suffolk, and those people need him. Meanwhile, he's, you know, singing to Dancing Queen and, you know, going on runs with Jill Scott around the jungle. Now, just going back to the whole women thing. Now, you were obviously relieved. You were there 13 days, I think, weren't you, before you were voted off? And of course, you were the first voted off and you were happy to go. Don't blame you. It must have been freezing. Now, you are the oldest ever contestant to take part in the show. And do you think there was a bit of ageism and the fact you're an older woman behind the public's decision to vote you off?
Actually, no. I think what happened in my jungle experience is almost from the first moment we arrived with the other contestants, we were split into two groups, and 5 of us went off into our jungle jail. And I was there with 4 men, great, fabulous, really, you know, not at that initial moment being at all unhappy. But then it went on and on for nearly 5 days. And that felt long and it was hard. And there was a sort of, from the eagerness of going in, I think we all found it difficult and challenging. And whereas you go in there to uplift and fulfill and meet a group of people and share all your woes, we were narrowed down. When we did go back in to meet everybody, of course, little bonds had already been made, and it was quite hard and difficult to suddenly become as one.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there was the great storm and we were all thrown back into isolation. And somehow, somewhere, when I was in my cottage, we were all alone, my cottage was freezing. So I spent 2 days freezing again. And I went back in, and all of the vitality and energy and everything you're supposed to put into it felt that it had lost. We had to kind of rebuild. And I found it difficult. And I'm sure the public realized. So I don't think it was because I was old and antiquated and miserable, mostly because I think I was miserable. I just found it hard. Yeah. I couldn't control my inner thoughts and go, get up and go. I really regret that. I really regret what happened to your fire.
But you were freezing. I mean, it must have been so cold. As you say, you went back to this cottage and you must, in my mind, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to have some comfort. And it was freezing. I mean, I kind of agree with you in terms from where I was sitting. I think people wanted to look after you. I think they thought, like, she's our Dame Arlene and she really needs to go home and warm up. Now, obviously, last night we saw the family letters being read out.
Don't.
I know. That was very emotional, wasn't it? Now, being away from your family, I mean, look, I know you're so cut off, aren't you? I know if anything happened, you would be alerted to it. Of course, we know that. But still, being cut off from your family day to day. I mean, I know you said that you did the show for your granddaughters, which is lovely. Not being able to see them, not being able to see your lovely daughters, you know, how was that?
Well, you know, up until the moment that we went out again, and the day of the storm was really horrific. We had to move into one freezing cold room in another part of the castle for our safety before we moved out late that night. That was a really tough day where, you know, clinging on to eventually we got a hand warmer or a hot drink. Up until then, I was getting along fine. I felt like I was doing this for my family. Somehow over that time, I know that I definitely changed. And I know in that moment that the letters were coming in, how I felt. I love my family and I love my grandchildren, but I live without them. I travel all over the world. I've been away from my family for way longer than those days. What happens internally is such a shock. That moment, all I wanted to do when I went back in was to see my family. And when those letters came, that was possibly the hardest moment, not just listening to everybody else's love letter from home or a friend, but to mine. And I felt, you know, completely broken inside.
Oh, right.
And the thing is, you can't hide your feelings, because I am somebody that does, you know, breakfast meetings, creates all day, events at night, busy. My life is so busy. Suddenly when I stop, I have time to reflect on my life, reflect on everything in my life, which I never do. I try not to look back. All the unhappy moments, I scatter to the wind and sort of fly high. But there's no escaping it there. There's no escaping it. You are your own true self. I don't regret for a moment doing that. I don't regret a second of it.
So this is obviously something that after 13 days probably affected you too. They're all looking really skinny in there. I mean, Jill Scott looks, I mean, she's obviously a very slim woman anyway, but she looks skin and bone. You know, Owen, my favourite Owen, I love Owen.
So do I.
He's so cute, isn't he?
Oh, isn't he adorable? For the moment I first saw him with his wide eyes and his absolute eagerness, like, where am I? I loved him.
He's so funny, isn't he?
Yeah.
But even he looks a lot more sort of like he's shrunk. Chris Moyles, of course, lost lots of weight. Now, I mean, did you lose weight in there? You must have done in 13 days.
Loads.
How much did you lose?
Oh, I think I was like, I don't know, 15, 16 pounds.
Blimey. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I mean, is it really tough? I mean, the food thing just would kill me. I mean, it seems horrendous.
That, to my surprise, didn't really bother me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Rice and beans 3 times a day. And if we're lucky, we get, you know, to eat. And the thing that I loved is when anybody wants stars bringing home their food, they had the most exotic fruits that a lot of people didn't like, you know, like persimmons and just strange fruits. So I was attacking the fruit. And as long as I have fruit, I'm happy. Yeah, everybody, you know, some of it looked like, you know, sort of jellyfish and a skin, you know, give it to me. Yeah.
I suppose the youngsters, you know, they would look at things like that and they'd say, oh, I'm not eating those. And then you could say, I'll have them.
I'll have them, yeah. So, no, it actually didn't bother me. That was the least of my worries. And I thought it would be the largest of my worries. But no, it wasn't.
Who do you think is going to win this year? I mean, we've had this conversation about women and the sad fact that women tend to go first. I'm really holding on to the fact that Jill Scott might win this. Yeah?
I have a very, very strong feeling about Jill Scott. She's just kind of attaboy atom, fearless. But let's hope that Jill, up for the women, that she gets there. She's wonderful, she's easygoing, and there's something very strong about her mind and spirit. And I would love to see her win.
I would too. I'd really love her to. Now, I'd love to see her win as well. Now, obviously, you spent a long time on Strictly. You've been on I'm A Celebrity. I know your roles in the shows are very different. You're obviously a judge on Strictly. They're both on our tellies at the moment. Which would you say is the toughest?
Oh, I would say Jungle by far. By far. And I'm not talking about winning anything now, but going through those jungle processes are tough, really tough. I mean, so tough that I had been asked for many years to do it, and I'd always said no. Sometimes I could barely watch it. Just watching somebody trying to drink something made me want to vomit, so it is tough. And you have to face up to things that a lot of people say it's ridiculous. Why would you do that? But actually, when you do and overcome something, it's an immense challenge for yourself, and you've made it. You've got through. With Strictly, whenever somebody like a celebrity is going to go on to Strictly that knows me or knows me vaguely, gets in touch, should I do it? I say yes. Go and do Strictly, because you will learn to dance from the most amazing pros or choreographers. You're being given life skills. Take it, enjoy every minute of it. Don't go in thinking about winning. Go in and think about how much I could learn, and just live and love that experience. You can get there, you can win, but what an experience. For me, anyone who's invited on to Strictly should take up that challenge and go for it, because it's like a gift.
The advice might be quite different to somebody if they came to you asking if they should go on the jungle.
I would say, think about what you're doing, and whatever you do, work on a mindset that I can do anything, and whatever comes or goes, I'm going to keep my spirits high. And that is a lot to overcome. If you don't think you can do that, maybe give it a miss.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you so much for coming on today, Arlene. It's been lovely to talk to you. I'm going to look for your Instagrams, because they sound great.
Yes, it's just I talk about aging and all the effects it has on you and what's coming. What's coming, girls?